I'm joined now by Sandra Garza, the longtime partner of Officer Brian Sicknick, who, of course, died a day after fighting to protect Mitch McConnell and the rest of the Capitol. Sandra, good morning, and thank you very much for being on the show.
Thank you so much for having me and letting me be a voice for Brian.
It's important to us to hear from you. Some of the details, as you know, in this report were just really difficult to read. I wonder how you're doing this morning and what your reaction's been now that you've had some time to digest it to what you've learned.
Well, honestly, I'm very angry. And to just hear that clip of Mitch McConnell basically making excuses is enraging. This is pure protection of Donald Trump. They don't want a full commission because they know that it would expose Donald Trump for inciting that riot that day.
Tell me more about that. Do you think it was a mistake then for the Senate to not consider like the so-called Trump factor or the political factor in what happened that day?
Yes, I do. I think they don't want, in my opinion, I think Donald Trump was the gun and those people were the trigger for him for that day. As far as I'm concerned, Donald Trump has blood on his hands. For the people that died that day, as well as the suicides that occurred after, and for Officer Billy Evans. And thank God there hasn't been any other suicides after the fact. But that's something that I, as a mental health professional, am very concerned about. Due to the trauma of that day and the numerous injuries and unseen injuries from that day. But I absolutely 100% hold Donald Trump accountable for that day. Now, the people that were there are absolutely responsible for their actions of the United States at the time. We're not talking about a grade B celebrity. Who has, some, followers on Twitter and Instagram, right? We're talking about the President of the United States at the time who could not accept defeat. And that's really what it was. His ego was so fragile, he could not accept that he lost, and he wanted to go over there and have his people take the Capitol over and get back into office by brute force. It's totally unacceptable. And they don't want a full commission because they know that it would expose him for what he did and the role that he played. And, anybody who has a brain in their head would know, he didn't call the National Guard in immediately. He watched everything on television. He saw those officers being pummeled, and he did absolutely nothing.
For viewers who may not know this, Sandra, you are not some longtime anti-Trump person. You were actually a supporter of the former presidents for a bit. I know you've said you'd be willing to meet with him, to talk with him. Has there been any outreach on your part to try to do that, or on their part for you?
They have not made any contact with me. I certainly would be willing to meet with him because, as I said yesterday, I deserve answers. Brian's family deserves answers. I would be willing to meet with him. I think he's too chicken to meet with me, honestly. If I could meet with him, I would. Because I want to get to the bottom of what happened. I want to know, A, why he didn't call in the National Guard immediately. He oversees the D.C. National Guard. He can't put this on anybody else. Why didn't he call them in ASAP? I also want to know why he went and hid and didn't contact myself or Brian's family to offer his condolences. It's pretty obvious. At that time, nobody knew what happened to Brian. We didn't know if it was a homicide or not. He went and hid because he was thinking, oh, my gosh, I may be responsible for this officer's death. And he didn't even send a letter. I find that appalling. President Biden came out to the private memorial service that we had for Brian. Right. And, he did that out of the goodness of his heart. He's experienced a lot of loss. I have a tremendous amount of respect for him and the First Lady for doing that. Brian was not a supporter of his, and yet he did that anyway. And yet Brian was a huge supporter of Donald Trump. And he knew all of this. And he didn't even write a letter. And I've come out and said that I supported Donald Trump, and he has made absolutely no effort to contact me. I mean, it's devastating. It's hurtful. Everything that I thought I knew is completely upside down.
When you were looking at this report, when you were reviewing the information about it, were you disappointed by what it shared about the actions and, frankly, the failures involving Capitol Police before and during the attack? And I wonder if you think that the acting chief, Chief Pittman, should resign.
You know, I mean, I think I think honestly they were not prepared for this. But, you know, the day before there was the protests going on. And, you know, realistically, they get threats all the time. Now, I'm not saying that, again, that this report doesn't expose things that could be done better. Certainly there is. I think in any kind of crisis situation, you want to have a debrief. You want to have everybody sit down and say, hey, what can we do better so that this doesn't happen again? You know, Chief Pittman has been very supportive of me, you know, the rest of Brian's family. I mean, I have nothing bad to say about her as a person. I don't work for her, so, I mean, I certainly don't want to speak for the officers. But her as a person, she's been fantastic to me and the family. You know, but again, I can't say that it's just Capitol Police, right? Because, you know, they were talking about the Department of Justice. They were talking about the Department of Homeland Security. They were talking about the FBI. You know, as I said yesterday, the Secret Service had the vice president in the building. Clearly, they didn't get the memo either. So, you know, I don't think any of them really knew the severity of the threat that day. But Donald Trump did, and the people in his administration, I believe, did. And that's why these Republicans don't want it. Some of the Republicans, I don't want to say all, because clearly, you know, for me, this is about the person. This isn't about the party. This is about the person. But they knew, and that's why they don't want this full commission, because it's going to expose a lot of ugliness, and they want to sweep that under the rug. And I'm not going to allow them to do that. I'm going to expose them for what they are. That's what Gladys wants to do as well. And let me just say, Gladys has never been a supporter of Donald Trump. I think she would have killed me if I didn't come out and say that. Yes, Brian's mother.
I'm almost at I'm sorry. I want to say I'm almost out of time, but I had a couple more questions that I was hoping you could quickly answer for me. One being that some Republicans, as we talk about how it is the person, not the party, are shying away from calling this an insurrection, what happened on January 6th, and Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell actually refused to answer directly when asked that question, I think just yesterday. Do you consider what happened on the 6th an insurrection?
Yes, I do. I do. And I think it's shameful that he's doing that. And I think, you know, if he's going to throw Capitol Police and all law enforcement under the bus, then he's not deserving of dignitary protection.
You're talking about Mitch McConnell?
Yes.
That's seems like a potentially extreme move.
Yes. I mean, you know, if they're going to say, all of them, any of them that are members of Congress that have dignitary protection, and they're going to downplay the events of that day and not vote yes on a 9/11 style commission, they're not deserving of dignitary protection. Because if they're going to say, hey, it wasn't a big deal, then they must not need law enforcement protection.
Sandra, what do you want to see Democrats do next? Do you want to see a select committee? Do you want to see a committee at a different level to look into this? What would be sort of and I can't imagine you'll ever get closure from this or justice from this, but what at least would give you some measure of comfort in the weeks ahead?
I would like to see what Gladys and I were doing on Capitol Hill. I want to see a 9/11 style commission. You know, it's going to be much more in depth. They're going to be able to have a lot more experts in there, you know, analyzing the events of that day. They're going to have a lot more subpoena power. They're going to look into the White House. They're going to look into, you know, the root cause of that day, not just the symptoms, right? We can build up law enforcement, right? But that's just addressing the symptom. That's not addressing the root cause. We need to get to the root cause of what happened that day so that this never happens again.